join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. So before we get underway, I just wanted to acknowledge John Riley. Tonight's his last meeting. He finishes his term as a member of the board. John served as a member of the board for more than 10 years, although for some reason we couldn't quite pinpoint the exact amount of time, but I'm going to say 10 plus years. During that time, John sat as chairman for 3 years, which I will not be following in his footsteps, but he sat as chair for 2019 and then took us through COVID for 20 and 21. John, on behalf of the board, just allow me to thank you and express our gratitude for your service to the board, to the township, and to the community at large. We will surely miss your wisdom and insight to the matters which come before us, and whoever comes in your place has some big shoes to fill. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, appeal number 3113. The applicant Radnor Rockwell LLC, property located at 1001 Eagle Road, requests an additional extension of time for obtaining a permit under section 280-144 of the code for 6 months until June 30th, 2025. I'm going to read in appeal 3148 as well. Same applicant, Radnor Rockwell LLC, same property located at 1001 Eagle Road, requests an additional extension of time for obtaining a permit under section 280-144 of the code until June 30th, 2025. Good evening.
Good evening. Rob Lambert from Site Engineering Concepts here on behalf of the applicant. I have good news. You've seen us many times over the years. We did receive our sewer approval this past fall. So I believe it was end of November, beginning of December. So that was one of the major hurdles that we were waiting for. I did hear from a PennDOT reviewer today that they were okay with all of our information and we're sending it back to PennDOT for processing that permit. So I'm optimistic that we'll be able to record the plans in the first quarter and then be able to commence construction. So it's been a long road, but hopefully this is our last extension that we'll be coming in for.
Okay, so just so that I'm understanding, because I was a little confused by Mr. Brosman's letter, PennDOT's the last of the approvals?
Correct. The PennDOT piece, and we just got, again, it was just today that we got a verbal that they were satisfied with the information we had submitted.
Okay. Any questions? No. I don't think a vote's going to be necessary. Does anybody have any objections to the request?
No.
I'll do it that way. Okay. Thank you. It's approved without objection.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good luck. Rob. Okay, appeal number 3195, the applicant Tiffany and Kevin Gaffney, property located at 240 Barclayton Circle, zoned residential R4. The applicant seeks a variance from 280-76 of the code to permit construction within the floodplain and variances from sections 280-30C, front yard, and section 280-30D1 and 2, side yard and aggregate side yard, to construct an overhang over existing entrances in the front and side yard. Applicant requests such other relief which may be required in conformity with the exhibits and testimony presented.
Evening.
Good evening.
Nick Cunelli representing the applicant. Just want to identify yourself for the record and you'll get sworn in.
Kevin Gaffney.
Tiffany Gaffney.
Timothy Davis from Shock Group Engineering. Shock Group Engineering.
This property is located in the Conestoga Village area of the township. The Gaffneys recently purchased the property a couple months ago. They are currently living in Philadelphia. Kevin's parents live in the area, I think a couple doors down from him. That's the reason they purchased it. They have an ever-growing family. They have a 3-year-old and a 3-week-old now. And So they're attempting to provide for them in this space. Of course, they desire to be in Radnor Township, but just need more room. What is being proposed here, this complies pretty much with everything from a dimensional standpoint, except for little overhangs above the front porch and the side porch. The issue really is the floodplain issue, and in this case, the location of the building is actually outside of the floodplain because it is elevated. It is elevated on piers, so to speak. You know, I believe it may be 4x4s, but Tim can testify more to that. And it's being located in this area here. And again, it's raised so that actually the building itself would be above the floodplain and on the second floor in this area. So really that over here would not be any increased footprint. Really the footprint here is just, as I said, is elevated. It complies with all the setback requirements, all the impervious coverage requirements and everything of that nature. The only issue is the floodplain, and you'll hear Tim testify, is that there's really no impact on the floodplain as a result of this addition.
Nick, can I interrupt you for a
Sure.
second? So I didn't quite understand this application. Are you here just for the variances related to the side yard and front setbacks, or is there also a component of a new structure?
Yeah, there's a floodplain issue too. So I'll go through it again. So in this area here, there's a door. We'll see by the photograph. And all that's being proposed here is to put a roof over that door. But again, because it's already non-conforming as to front yard setback, and we're putting a roof over it, we have to ask for a variance for that from front yard setback. On the side here, we have another side, and all we're asking for here again is to put a roof over that side. And there's a small, I believe it's 9.5 inches or something of that nature, relief that would be needed. Now, what is occurring here, this area here is in the floodplain. Because it's in the floodplain, even though it's elevated, we need relief from the floodplain statute.
Thank you.
That, Mike, there you go. Kevin, you recently purchased this property,
Yes, May 2024.
and I'm going to show you A2. Is that the deed?
Yes.
And who will reside at the property?
Myself, my wife, and my 2 children.
Who currently lives there?
Nobody.
Where do you live now, right now?
In Philadelphia.
Okay. And why did you purchase the property?
We had been looking a long time in Radnor, put probably 30 offers in. And my dad saw a dumpster outside of this house because they lived 4 doors down, and someone had passed away a year before, and their relatives were living there. And we knocked on their door, and they asked them if they would sell it to us, and we were able to buy it right away.
When was the home constructed?
1945.
And the lot's small, correct? It's, I believe, somewhere on the plan in the case it'd be 7,300 square feet.
Yes,
Less, like 0.16 acres is what we have down.
correct.
And what's the total square footage of both floors of the home?
1910.
Has no garage,
No garage.
and the footprint where the home's located is the original footprint.
Correct.
You're proposing an addition, as I mentioned in opening, and we can go in more detail on it. Why? Why do you need the addition?
The addition is going to be, the second story in the back is going to be for a master bedroom and ensuite bathroom. So it's just to make it from a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom with an extra bath in there.
And would the addition be located, there's an area here that kind of extends the one L-shaped building. Is that where the addition would be located?
We're on the first floor. The only thing that we're doing on the first floor is a walkout deck on the base level. The second story is where the addition is actually going to be, and it's going to be the width of the the front part of the building. So
We're
yeah,
indicating
it'll go,
here.
yeah, exactly. And that's where the bedroom's going to be. So when we were originally looking at this and designing it, we were aware it was in the floodplain, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't increase the footprint of it. We were not aware that a deck increases the footprint, and that's where the design came in, and that's why we only went with the addition really on the second floor. So we're seeking relief for the pillars that are holding up the second floor and the deck that extends out on that side, which is within the setback.
So the area here that we're indicating here, the extension of the L, that area is elevated?
Correct.
It's on pillars.
Correct.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A3. And if I can locate that, that's the aerial that we had as part of the plan. And on that aerial, you had some marking stars, I believe. And if I can pull that plan out, or that photo out. Gus, to save time, do you have one there? Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as A3. Is that an aerial of the property?
Correct.
And if you can you show where your home is located?
It's right here.
And you have stars on these other homes. What do the stars represent on these other homes?
Those represent houses in the neighborhood that have a very similar or larger back addition on the house. These houses were built in 1945, and they were pretty much all the same. And since then, you know, we looked at a lot of those additions. We looked at the one right next to us prior to buying it. My parents are friends with them. We walked through just to see what an addition looked like. And a lot of the ones in the neighborhood are identical to that or bigger.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A4. Can you tell the board what A4 represents?
That's the front of the house.
And A5?
The rear of the house.
And that L there, that open area where the L there, that's where
That's where this,
raised deck.
yeah, this deck would extend here, and then this goes up to second level and over. And we're looking to put pillars in to hold the second level up.
A6, is that kind of an area where the addition will be
Exactly,
located?
same thing. We're going to have a door here going out to the deck, and then the whole second story from here over to here.
And A7?
That's looking out to there's a creek here, which is very small, but that's what's causing this issue with the putting us in the floodplain, and this is the house behind us.
I'm going to mark as A8 or A10 actually, and hand up to the board an exhibit prepared by Shock, which is really what you have seen as A7, but I'll hand up a full-size one, a little better indication of what we're intending to do here, and actually showing the pillars and where the pillars would be located, and I'll have Tim testify regarding that. I have another one too, if you have an extra. And just showing you what's been marked as A10, which I referred to in opening, and Tim will expand more on. This is the site plan for your property?
Yes.
Yeah. go
Yes.
ahead, yeah. And the creek's in the back, it shows it as Valley Run?
Correct.
And then again, just if you can, I believe the pillars are marked. Again, Tim will testify more regarding it. Is that kind of the area
Yep.
where the pillars will be located?
Pillar up against the house here, 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 and here. These two are the ones holding up the second floor, and these are just the smaller ones for the deck.
Have you, now, let's talk a little bit before we move on regarding the front of the property and what you're doing as far as the little overhangs are concerned. First, as we saw in A4, that's your kind of overhanging there. If you can just show on that photograph where the
Correct. So
overhang would be.
we're going,
Show on the photograph where that overhang would be located.
so here, we're going above this entryway here, a second story. And then right here, over this concrete slab, we're having an overhang. So this concrete slab existing is 3 by 8. The overhang is not going to go anywhere past that. And really, it's just for here and on the side. We don't have a garage. It's just for coming in and coming out and, protecting from the weather.
Yeah, and currently, the survey indicates that the front is non-conforming, and that is 23 feet, 23.36 feet from the
Correct.
front yards, from the right-of-way,
Mhm.
and you're extending it 3 feet closer. is
3
that
feet,
right?
correct.
And then on the side overhang, if you can describe where that is going and
Yeah,
how much.
there's a side entryway, which, we in the interior plans, there's a mud room right here, so we're hoping to use this as one of our primary entrances, especially for the kids, and we want to have an overhang here. Same thing, there's an existing concrete slab here. This one, however, because of the non-conforming already here, it's, I think, more than half of the overhang that we're proposing is permittable, and then the other half is not. So it's really a case of whether we cut back the size of that overhang or we're allowed to do the entire overhang.
And so what it comes down to is that overhang extends 9.5 inches closer to the property line than currently exists.
Correct.
Have you spoken to your neighbors regarding this?
Yes, I have.
Uh,
I reached out to all 4 of the immediate neighbors. Jason and Carrie, they were the ones that showed us their house before we bought this one. They're all in favor of it. They signed a letter saying that they were in favor. When I mentioned this and everything else, and they said that sounds wonderful. They actually have an overhang on their side of their house, and they're like, you want to put one just like we have? And I said, yes. And they said, yeah, absolutely, no problem. And then we talked to the people across the street, and they said, no problem. They signed a letter. Talked to the people in the back, and they said, no problem, signed a letter. Reached out several times to this neighbor, wasn't able to get a hold of them. I got a hold of them initially, but nothing after that. But I sent them the full plans with a detailed explanation of everything that we were doing, and just wasn't able to connect with them.
I've marked as A11, A12, and A13, the letters of support from the neighbors. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's all I have of Kevin. As I said, Tim will testify as well.
Any questions from the board?
Okay, Tim? Oh, sure, John.
I'm still not clear on what you're doing here. So on the drawing, you show an area with dashed lines and an X through it.
Yeah, so the X in the back is the portion of the deck that extends past the existing building. So the whole first floor of the addition is going to be open deck, so it's not enclosed in the back. The portion without the X has a second floor above it. The X is to indicate an overhang condition where there is not a second floor above it.
And although it's an open deck, you're blocking, like impervious, even though technically.
Correct. We are, the entire project, including all of the proposed overhangs and the proposed additions, fall under the 500 square foot regulation within the township. So we're adding 296 net square feet to the lot.
And then how about riparian buffer?
In this case, the riparian buffer is constricted to the 30-foot rear yard setback, and we are in compliance with that riparian buffer.
Thank you.
And you're also in compliance with the impervious coverage requirement.
Correct.
So just so that I'm clear then, I guess that area of the first floor that's deck is
Yes.
covered by,
Partially by the second floor addition and partially by another part with the X over it is a roof overhang. So the whole area of the new deck will be covered. The part with the X will only have a roof. The part without the X will have a full second story, and that is the portion with the bedroom and ensuite bathroom.
Hey, Tim, perhaps this has been marked as A9. This was just expanded. Do you know if this may show better as to the addition and what is going on here?
Yes, if I may have the pointer.
Mhm.
Thank you. So this portion here,
I'm sorry, I haven't even, how are you employed, Tim?
I work for and own and operate Shot Group Engineering LLC.
And how long have you been there?
Been with Shot Group for 5 years, working in Radnor Township for 11.
Used to work for whom prior to that?
Momini and Associates.
Has Shock previously worked on other plans dealing with floodplain issues?
Yes, we have numerous floodplain projects, both completed and underway, most notably along Indian Creek, along the Schuylkill River, as well as Indian Creek Drive down there, and River Road in Lower Merion, where we have completed 4 houses that all had no flood issues during Hurricane Ida.
And the construction principles that you're using on this project is the same as those projects?
Correct.
And you've been qualified as an expert previously in Radnor.
Correct.
Can I offer Tim up as an expert in civil engineering, please?
yeah, without exception.
Now, you're familiar with this particular project, right?
Correct.
And Shock developed the plans for it?
Yes, we developed the existing condition site plan and the site zoning plan.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what's been actually marked as a larger area of A9. And if you can perhaps describe to the board what A9 represents as far as the proposal is concerned. I'll start with A1. This is A1 of A9.
So up in the top left corner, we have the proposed site plan up there, and in the darker gray, that is the portion where we have the second floor addition over the open porch. The part right behind that in the crosshatch is the part that we have the X through in ours that indicates a overhang condition where it has an open porch with a overhang covered roof on top of it.
And referring to A2.
A2 is the architectural plan of the first and second floor footprints of the house. So on the first floor plan, we see the existing house that is in the darker gray walls in here. We have the covered deck noted in here. The covered deck in this portion is the part that has the second floor that is indicated immediately to the right. The covered deck that extends past it with the fireplace is the open deck that only has a roof on top of it.
A3.
A3 is the architectural elevations. We have the front elevation that we previously had a photo of, as well as the side and rear elevation. On the rear elevation, we can see the proposed deck that's going in with the overhang, as well as the piers as they are sticking down to the ground, completely open within the floodplain.
And finally, A4.
A4 are the architectural construction details, including the staircase and air venting details for the roof.
Now, let's go back to the actual plan, being A8. And you mentioned the pillars. So how are they constructed, and what do they consist of?
So there are two different types of pillars as part of this project. As Kevin alluded to, there are the structural pillars that are holding up that second floor addition. They have full formed footers that are below ground, below frost level. Full size footers that are below frost level. Those footers have structural columns that come up through the deck, both holding the deck and the second floor addition above. The footers that are farther out, and all the footers are indicated in red on this plan, those are 4x4 posts holding up both the deck itself as well as the overhang roof. It is noting that the reason that we do not have the floor shown in this view is this is a view of the relief required because the floodplain is at an elevation between 393 elevation and 394, and the first floor elevation of the house sits at 396, which the deck is level with. The first floor of the house as well as the deck are out of the floodplain. The only parts of the construction that are within the floodplain are the piers that extend down to the ground below.
Is any grading being performed?
No,
Any fill being placed on this site?
no.
Have you reviewed the standards under 280-73 floodplain regulations of Radnor Township?
Yes.
Referring to the intent of the section, is there any issue in regards to the addition of danger from floodwaters?
No.
Is there any danger of any pollution?
No.
Does it have any effect on the absorption of water?
No.
How about any increase in water runoff?
They will be minimal. We are within the under 500 square feet allowable in Radnor Township.
Is the floodplain actually being disturbed in any manner?
Minimally only for the posts.
Any increase in water volume as a result of the addition?
Minimally, because the soils are poor draining already as they are in the floodplain, the additional impervious will not generate any substantial additional rates or runoff volume.
Any increase in the rate of flow?
Again, no substantial increase in rates.
Are the natural conditions of the site and of the floodplain being preserved?
Yes.
Is there any effect on the stream flow of Valley Run?
No.
Any effect on flood height?
No, as the pillars will have about the same cross-section as small trees.
Any increase in the 100-year flood elevation?
None that would be measurable, again, as they would have the cross-section of small trees.
Is the structure designed, located, and constructed as to offer minimum obstruction to the flow of water?
Yes, only the minimum structure is extending into the floodplain with no additional obstruction.
And as you mentioned, is the anchoring, is that being done in accordance with standard engineering practices?
Yes, it has been designed and will be signed and sealed by a structural engineer in the state of Pennsylvania, as well as extending down to frost, connected with rebar and concrete.
That's all I have.
Any questions?
You're adding roofs, and so you'll have gutters and downspouts. Where are they going to discharge?
They will discharge to grade in a non-concentrated manner. So the current plan is to have them discharge individually. There are current downspout flow paths that we will be reinforcing with splash guards.
But you're not putting spreaders or,
No, that is not planned as part of this project.
that's all I have.
Anyone else? I have, there's no, in your opinion, there's no stream improvements required under 280-76?
No.
And okay. Anything else, Nick?
No, that's all I have. Just request the exhibits be made part of the record.
Without objection. Did you hand up, I might have had my head down. I think you mentioned 11, 12, maybe some letters.
I did hand those up, yeah. I just handed up the originals.
Great, okay. Yep, okay. Any public comment? Seeing none, okay. Does somebody want to make a motion? Actually, before you go, I wonder if we should split the motion into parts, because the dimensional variances versus the floodplain relief might carry different standards.
John, it's your last meeting. So
Man, you guys are working me. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make two motions, and perhaps the board can consider them separately or together, however you choose. The first motion is to grant the applicant the relief for a variance from Section 280-76 of the code to permit construction within the floodplain in accordance with the plans and testimony which have been offered here this evening.
Okay. Okay, should we discuss that and vote on that motion separate and apart then, or should just take the motions?
Yeah, we want to
Yeah.
keep the suspense going.
Okay, so with the second, is there any board discussion on that motion?
The only thing I'll say is, given the minimal incursion, if you will, into the floodplain, I think it's a reasonable request and a reasonable accommodation for a variance.
Anyone else? No?
Well, I was just going to say that you are going to increase the flow back to the stream from those downspouts. So I would encourage to do landscaping, which helps slow that water down at least.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Zach, I'll start with you.
I'm in favor. Aye.
John?
I'm in favor.
John?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor, so that motion passes. Do I have a motion on the other components of the application?
So, Mr. Chairman, I would also move that the applicant be granted the relief requested for a variance from Section 280-30C for front yard and Section 280-30D1 and 2 for side yard and aggregate side yard setback to construct the overhangs that have been described here this evening, such relief to be in accordance with the plans and testimony presented here this evening.
Any discussion on this?
That's the easy one.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly that side yard setback on the overhang is de minimis at only a few inches. The front yard, less than 10%, but I don't know if that quite meets my definition of de minimis, but it does strikes me as reasonable, so. Anybody else? Discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. Zach?
I'm in favor.
John?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. It passes. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
We
Thank
didn't
you.
miss anything, did we, Nick?
Welcome to
think so.
Township, guys.
Good luck. Okay. Ready? Appeal number 3196, the applicant 601 Conestoga Road LLC, property located at 601 Conestoga Road and Zone C1 Commercial. The applicant proposes leasing the existing building to tenants whose use complies with the zoning code, but due to the existing nonconformity requires relief from Section 280-103B of the code regarding the required number of off-street parking spaces. Applicant requests a variance from Section 280-103B, a special exception in accordance with Section 280-101A2, or such other relief which may be required in conformity with the exhibits and testimony presented. Mr. Coniglia?
Evening, Nick Canilia for the applicant. I think everyone's familiar with this property. If you ever drive on Conestoga Road, it's an interesting property. It's an interesting property. Actually, a classmate's dad owned this property, I remember. And it has historical nature that Sean will testify to, who's the new owner of the property. He just purchased it in April of this year. He's been trying to rent it and fill it since that time. The issue has been the parking. And currently, he has 3 tenants that comply with the requirement of 23 parking spaces. But in order to rent everything else, he's going to need relief from this board. So we have a situation where actually the buildings are non-conforming in that, as you see, there's 23 parking spaces, and even for the office use, 43 parking spaces would be required. So actually the proposal is only, because there's a small component of retail which requires 1 per every 2 employees, so we're only 3 spaces over what the prior use was, which was all office. As Sean will testify, this building dates back, we think, to Revolutionary War days. I've heard the same thing about, the troops kind of stopped in this area. There may have been an inn at one time, I've heard rumors of. Yeah, and so as I said, it's an interesting property. I think you've seen the work on the property, actually. If you've driven by recently, Sean's been doing a lot of work on the front of the building. So what we need relief for is really the parking issue, is what we're here for this evening. And that mic is... And we'll have 3 witnesses. One, the owner, the architect, and Frank Tavani's in the back to talk about the parking issue.
I guess the question, so I understand the relief for the parking. The special exception, is that just belt and suspenders in your application?
Yeah, I guess the question was, do we have an existing nonconformity that we're only expanding by 3 parking spaces, and would that be permitted by special exception? It's kind of why it's in there. Because remember, we do have a provision in the zoning code regarding if you're not increasing existing nonconformity by more than 50%, you may be entitled to a special exception. So whether that's applicable or not, I'll leave it up to you guys. But again, we're really not, it's certainly a nonconforming use, and Frank will testify as to really the parking demand, anymore for offices according to ITE and even retail are much less than what the parking requirement is in the Radnor code, which hopefully with the new comprehensive plan, we will be revisiting that, so. When we swear in them. I do. Sure. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Sean Lyons, SHAUNLYONS.
John Hassan, HASSON.
Frank Tavani, TAVANI.
And Sean, where do you live?
I live in Newtown Square.
And what's your relationship to the applicant, 601 Conestoga Road, LLC?
I'm the owner.
And you purchased the property in April of 2024?
Yes, sir.
And I'm showing you what's been marked as A2. Is that the deed to the property?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A3, and this is an aerial of the property. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay, and just briefly, if you can, describe the businesses that are located along here. This is a C1 zoning district and pretty much all commercial. both on your side of the street as well as the other side of the street.
Correct. Right across the street is a dentist. Right next to me is an automotive tenant. Then there's the market, a clothing boutique, and I believe a dry cleaner. And then further down used to be the urgent care.
And actually, I think Matt may own that, Matt Paulina may own that building there, and then Gary Carakellian owns
Yeah.
the building in this location, which I think Matt has his building business in there, and right now I think Gary's building may be unoccupied. And across the street is the Friends
Meeting house.
and actually they have a nursery school in there, right?
Yes.
Just going to show you A4. And again, as we mentioned during opening, everyone's familiar with it. That's the site itself, the front of the building.
Yes, correct.
And you've done some renovations in there, haven't
Yeah,
you?
we redid the whole sidewalk and created a little path with a little sidewalk all the way from the parking all the way through around the front of the building.
What's the history, your understanding of this site?
Yeah, well, the history says Sierra 1808, but however, it seems to be older than that. Many believe it was actually older than that. It was a general store which supplied soldiers' goods and services during the Revolutionary War, and then it had living quarters above. Some of the pictures and the information I found in the building was pretty interesting pictures, but W.M. Cornog Grocer was in there, and there was a picture with a horse and buggy, so I'm not sure what that was. But then the Ithan store was in there, and it was incorporated about
Slow down.
Ithan,
Slow down.
I-T-H-A-N store, incorporated in 1910. And then at one point, it was the oldest post office in 1942. And then I saw other pictures that said the old Ithan store in the 70s, and then Henry Stewart Company, which is who I bought the property from, was in there from the 70s on.
And they were offices. They used
Correct.
I'm going to show you A5. Is this a view from Radnor Chester Road, and it shows the parking area?
Yes.
And A6, this is another view of the rear showing how it's basically hidden from view from as you go further down Radnor Chester Road.
Correct.
And then A7 just indicates the Ithan or Conestoga Road there and the Ithan Village area showing all the commercial uses, right?
Correct.
Since you purchased, have you been attempting to lease the property?
Yes. We've had some great activity on the property. We leased the front building to a tenant called Vanner House, which is an equestrian boutique. They sell a lot of their products online. However, they do have a little retail presence, but most of their product is sold at horse shows throughout the country. So they basically travel around to different horse shows and have little booths at each of those horse shows, and they sell different types of product that's associated with the equestrian style boutique.
And they rent 3,800 approximately square feet?
Correct. They take 2 floors of the front building. They take the older building.
And are they, how many employees do they have?
They have
At peak time?
two
And
max.
Only two? How come?
Most of them are not there in the office. They have a lot of consultants, and they really are traveling quite a bit. So there's only really 2. The owners are actually in Charleston, South Carolina. So there's really only 1 person, but usually 2 people would be max, unless they have an event or what have you.
And who else do you have currently leasing to?
Currently, my real estate company's in the building, which is really only me, and then occasionally have some clients come in, or architects and engineers. And then we have another tenant, which is a personal trainer that roughly takes about 800 square feet, which we're working on right now, which you'll see this down here below is
You're referring to A5?
A5, which is the lower level. They're broken up to about 3 spaces that are roughly a little bit less than 800 square feet per space. So we have interest for numerous tenants. The middle space is the tenant that we have, which is a gentleman by Nick Peterson. He just does personal training, one-on-one training. So it's just him. He's the only employee of the company.
And looking at A8, this is an accurate site plan of the property?
Correct.
And it's showing 23 parking spaces?
Correct.
And it actually has a breakdown that we'll have John testify to regarding how it was calculated as
Yes.
to the parking requirements. Now, do you have a list of proposed tenants, letters of intent or anything?
I do. I have multiple tenants that are interested in the space. I have a kind of grab-and-go coffee concept that would be on the corner here.
They would have no seats, correct?
No seating. They just see the traffic, and that's they see the Radnor-Chester traffic, and they want to sell them coffee as they sit there in traffic. And then the other space furthest to the right side of the building is a hair salon type tenant.
And tell me a little bit about the hair salon.
So they would have 2 stations. They do more like hair washing, kind of, and get you ready to go before you go out. They do cut a little bit, but most of their stuff is more of like a hair washing station for like more of a spa type tenant.
So they're not doing nails or?
No, they don't do any nails. They don't do any of that stuff. They just do hair.
Okay. And would it be accurate to say that the current uses, according to code, require about 21 parking spaces? According to Radnor code, I should say.
Yes, I believe so.
Again, we can have John testify to that. That's all I have for Sean at this time.
Any questions?
Oh, Sean, how long have you been in the business, in the real estate business?
I've been in the business for about 20 years in the commercial real estate business. I own a brokerage firm and then in the development business for about 15 years.
Where'd you go to school?
Villanova.
What's the total unit? How many units are in the building?
Total in terms of commercial tenants, the thought would be 6, 5 to 6, but 6 would be ideal in terms of the office space if it was broken up to 2 tenants. The office space could be roughly 4,000 gross, so in a perfect world, it would be 2,000 and 2,000 would be probably the easiest to lease out.
Okay. John?
Good evening.
John, can you state your name and your occupation?
John Hassan, and I'm a registered architect.
And I am going to show you what's been marked as A8. And did you do a survey of the square footage and the parking requirement for each of the square footages in this building?
Yes, we did.
And if you can describe what A8 represents and how your calculations proceeded.
Yeah, so A8 represents the existing site plan with the current existing amount of parking that is available on that site. It describes the different tenant spaces over here, as well as over here we created a parking calculation based on each tenant and each tenant's requirements. That's how we came up with the total number required as being 46.
And that's based on a gross square footage of 10,550 square feet.
Well, that's based on that, but yeah.
But yeah,
Go ahead.
but 80% is what we calculate for floor area when it comes to parking.
That is correct.
And so these numbers are actually the 80% numbers, I believe.
Correct. It actually describes the gross and then also the net.
Okay, and as to here, can you just quickly go through the uses and the parking calculations you assigned to each?
Definitely, yes. So this is the front part of the building. This is the older building that fronts onto Conestoga Road. This building here would have the 2 tenants in it, one of them being the Vanner House, who is already there. They're occupying the 3,800 square feet of space, which for them equated to 13 spots for the square footage and 1 space for their 2 employees total.
And then for the personal trainer?
Yeah, the personal trainer is located in the rear portion of the building here on the lower level. In the middle space, they would have 780 gross square feet or 624 net, which that would equal 4 spaces being required for that middle space.
And then whatever.
Sean's
Sean
business
has,
is on the
yeah.
2nd floor of the rear building here.
And it's just a question on how much, I think, right now, as he has, but.
Correct. The total space gross is 1,958 square
Right now,
feet, and the net would be 1,566.
Okay.
Which would require 8 parking spots.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if he occupied that whole 2nd
Right,
floor.
if he occupied the whole thing.
Correct, correct.
Referring to A9, if you just tell the board what this represents, it's color-coded. I believe it's the same thing you just went through, but since we've marked it as an exhibit, why don't you just quickly go over it? Sorry.
Nope, you're good to go. Yeah. There you go. You see what I did? Flatten that out a little bit. I got it. There you go. So, I did not do that. Okay, so these are more of an architectural floor plan of the buildings based on how we surveyed it. This particular sheet right here is the basement level, lower level. These are the 3 tenant spaces that are in that lower part of the building that you see off of the Radnor-Chester Road side, with the blue one in the middle being the personal trainer who currently occupies that space. The gray one is the hair salon that is interested in the space, and the magenta one is for the takeout coffee shop. And this part of the building over here is strictly an unfinished basement below the older part of the building.
And that's not being rented.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, it's unfinished. It wouldn't really be usable at all. It's unfinished. This is what I would call the first floor plan. This is the older building that fronts on the Conestoga. The purple shaded area is the Vanner House. That's the dress company or the equestrian boutique store. The green space would be a second office in that front older building. That one currently is available for rent. No one's leasing that one at the moment. And the tan color here would be Sean's office space that he currently occupies.
But he's not really occupying all that right now.
He doesn't really occupy the whole second floor, correct. And then the top floor here, okay, got it. This would be the second floor. And the purple shade is, again, the same part of the upper level space of the Vanner House. They have a bi-level unit. And same for the green would be a bi-level unit with the lower office space as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all I would have for John.
Yep.
Frank?
Sorry, you're faster than me. Any board
I'm sorry,
questions?
yeah, okay.
Yes, sorry. For Mr. Hassan.
Frank, you're under oath, right?
I am.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A10. This is your CV.
Yes,
You're a registered Pennsylvania engineer.
I am.
And you've testified numerous times before this board and other boards in the township.
Accurate.
And what's quickly, your educational training?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, graduated in 1993. I've been in continuous practice as a transportation engineer since that time and became licensed in the Commonwealth in 1999.
And are you a member of the Institute of Traffic Engineers?
I am.
And you have experience in doing parking studies?
Yes,
And you've done several of them for various clients in the Radnor Township,
and elsewhere.
in addition to traffic studies.
Yes.
In this particular case, we're looking at parking, correct?
Yes,
Did you do a parking study for this site?
I did.
And what was your methodology and what conclusions did you come to?
Certainly. I believe the study has been marked as A11.
And is that accurate, A11 right here?
Yes. A11 is 16 pages. It contains 3 pages of text and 13 pages of support material, all of which came from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or ITE, Parking Generation Manual. So as we heard from the last witness, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You can start with a ordinance analysis of what the potential parking requirements are. Another way to look at it is based on, in my opinion, the most recently available empirical data as gathered and reviewed by the Institute of Transportation Engineers in their publication, Parking Generation, which is updated periodically, currently in its 6th edition. That publication has a wellspring of information about all kinds of uses, institutional, office, industrial. So what I did, as I always do with parking studies, is I tried to find the best fit for the mix of uses, if there is a mix of uses, for a particular site. And as we heard from Mr. Lyons, the site is about 10,500 square feet, should be broken down basically into 5 different categories, 5 different tenants, the largest of which is going to be the office space at about 4,300 square feet, give or take in total, followed by this Vanner House, this equestrian luxury goods retailer, and then the remainder being a mix of personal services, essentially, a personal trainer, a salon, and a grab-and-go cafe. And if the board is interested, on page 2 of A11, I do have a breakdown of what I felt were the best fit land use codes, is the terminology ITE uses for each of these categories, and what the suggested average peak parking rate is for each of them, followed by the gross size of each category, not a 20% reduction as you see in the code here, but just what ITE recommends is not making those sort of adjustments for whatever factoring for each of the uses, and came up with a individual number of parking spaces for each component's peak. And coincidentally, it really was a coincidence, that adds up to 23 spaces, which is what's found on the site. However, A11 goes on to say that since there is a pretty diverse mix of uses here, there's two other phenomenon that should be considered when looking at the aggregate peak parking demand for this site as a whole. The first is how some uses could share users, or rather, some components of the site could share the same user. You could have an office worker that at lunch goes to the grab-and-go cafe, or maybe uses the salon or the personal trainer. So if you share that user, then you don't have 2 parking spaces, you only have 1. So that's one aspect of this notion of shared parking. And the second aspect is not all individual uses have their peak parking demand temporally at a time as all other uses. There's an ebb and flow. So for example, according to ITE at least, a personal trainer tends to peak either very early in the morning or later in the day, at the end of the day, ostensibly as people are going home from work, I would imagine. So the grab-and-go cafe, on the other hand, is probably more of like a lunchtime peak. So again, dissimilar peaks temporally means that you have a reduced parking demand in aggregate. So page 3 of A11 concludes that if you very conservatively, in my opinion, take just a 10% reduction for each of those dynamics, 10% for the sharing of the users, 10% for the dissimilar nature of the time peaks, you wind up probably with a total peak parking demand at any one given moment of time in the range of 18 to 20 spaces, I would say. And that's, again, assuming that the site is even entirely leased. Of course, you know, the nature of commercial real estate is sometimes there is an ebb and flow with that as well. But the most conservative approach you could take is to assume it's fully leased, which I did.
And Frank, all of your opinions just expressed, they're within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have for Frank.
Any questions?
There's no seating in this proposed for the coffee shop?
It's my understanding. I think you said seating?
Seating.
Yes.
No, there's no seating. Go. Sean?
And so you have a chart based on a small restaurant.
Yes, that's actually a very, thank you for that. It's a good segue. There is no ITE parking generation category for restaurants without seating. And in fact, I chose, they do have different types of restaurants, like a fast food restaurant. So I picked the restaurant that I thought was the best fit for what is proposed here, which was 930 Fast Casual Restaurant. But that does include seating. So if anything, it's probably quite conservative in terms of the parking that would be found here if this is approved.
Yeah, it's just almost impossible because if you look at every Wawa or Starbucks in our community, the parking lots are overflowing certain times of the day.
Well, you know, Wawa's and, well, both of those businesses, they really do have some variability based on their locations. For example, I happen to live relatively close to the Wawa in Narberth, which has a relatively constrained parking lot. I don't see that there's too much inappropriate parking there, but the spaces do turn over pretty frequently. You know, people go in, get something, and leave. There's no seating. But, you know, that's trip generation. That's not what we're really talking about here. It's parking at any one moment in time. I think Sean would be thrilled if he had a tenant that had that level of activity. I think it's probably a very different model.
That's all I have.
I have a question. Not necessarily directed to you, but generally speaking, Is there any sort of overflow contingency? God forbid you lease out and
Sean?
park 23 spaces proves
We've
to be
actually, he's
insufficient?
actually.
Yeah. Actually, we reached out to the neighbors already and just said, hey, we let them know that we're coming to the township. And, we've actually done some work with those guys. And we said, if there's any need for space, would you let us rent some space? And they've been open to that. Next door to us is a automotive, and in the back they have, some storage for vehicles and things of that nature. And they definitely have enough if we needed it, or if maybe a couple of us owners wanted to park back there. They're open to it. We haven't, really further try to pencil a deal or anything like that. However, we've worked with him in the past, and he's been phenomenal. So if we needed extra spaces, I believe we can get some. The nature of our business isn't really high traffic. In fact, my business, we have other locations, so we don't really use a lot of traffic for us to be in there. And the nature of the office business is a lot of people obviously are working from home. So, most of our activity has been very, very quiet. And then back what Frank was referring to, even the Vanner House has very minimal traffic, although they want to show off and they want to really highlight with their business. They don't open till like 10 or 11, and they close at like 6. So they're really not like have a ton of hours and things of that nature. I hope that helps.
How about reserved spaces or anything along those lines? Have any?
Well, so far we haven't really promised anything to any tenants. Ideally, if we've came in before, and we actually are creating a deck and better access to the middle space. So if I'm just looking at the plan here, I could show you this, and we've gotten this approved to add this wood deck. So as you can see from the Conestoga Road, as you guys know, and coming down the street, it's very difficult to come in and out of here. So we have had approval to build this deck, which would give us basically handicapped accessibility to the middle of the building, and would really enhance the leasability of the space. It's very difficult to actually lease this space right now anyway, just because it's on second floor, and there's just a lot of options out there. So we're trying to make it more accessible from Conestoga Road by adding a nice deck and getting you access to the space. I'm in there now. I don't know really how much we're going to be able to lease it if we don't create a little nicer entranceway. Because as you can see, the building it goes down grade. So the only way to really get in the building would be come into the back here or come up this way. So we're trying to create a little nicer entranceway.
Thank you. Anybody else?
That's all I have. Just request the exhibits be made part of the record. We have certainly a non-conforming situation here already. Really, we're minimally increasing the non-conformity, if at all. And also, certainly a lot different in today's world with office space than it was 20 years ago or 5 years ago, even since COVID, as to people working virtually as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Exhibits without exception. I don't remember if you moved formally for Mr. Tavani, but assuming you didn't, did he?
Yeah.
As an expert? Yeah, as an expert? Okay. I don't remember hearing it, but okay.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the applicant be granted the relief requested, the relief specifically being a variance from Section 280-103B of the code regarding the required number of off-street parking spaces. Such relief to be consistent with the plans and testimony presented this evening at this hearing.
Any discussion? No? John? No. Okay. So I was a little concerned that we might be dealing in the hypothetical. I was kind of glad to hear that you've got some LOIs or potential tenants that are out there that would act, that we could discuss this in a little bit more of a concrete sense. But okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, in the sense that the plans that were presented this evening identified specific uses and specific configurations of the premises, I would think that, we're not buying a complete pig in a poke here. I mean, there's a plan and a set of uses currently, and to the extent that any future proposals, if, unfortunately for some reason, what you have, teed up doesn't come to fruition and they come back with something completely different, the argument could be made that the relief that we might grant this evening doesn't apply to those future different uses.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? We'll take a vote then. Zach?
I'm in favor. Aye.
John? John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, how many times did you have to stop there and wait? It drives me crazy when people are trying to make the left from Conestoga Road onto Radnor Chester, even though it says no left turn before 9 o'clock, and they still. I never see anybody there. I never see our police force there. It just drives me crazy when stuff like that.
Thanks again.
I'm usually.
Set? Okay, absolutely. Okay, appeal number 3197, the applicant Kids Clubhouse of the Main Line LLC, property located at 150 North Radnor Chester Road and zoned PB planned business. Applicant seeks a variance from section 280-59 of the code or contends, I think it's a typographical error, that the use is permitted as part of the total development of an integrated planned business community. Applicant further seeks relief from section 280-103B 19 regarding the required number of off-street parking spaces for the child daycare use. Additionally, applicant seeks any other relief required by the zoning code consistent with the exhibits and testimony presented. Good evening.
Good evening. And it's just myself and one witness.
Okay.
Good to start?
Yeah, you want to swear them? Yep.
I do. Angela Bruno, B-R-U-N-O.
Eileen, E-I-L-E-E-N, Bagdon, B-A-G-D-O-N.
All right, so as I just stated, my name is Angela Bruno, and I'm the owner of Bright Minds Preschool of the Main Line, formerly known as Kids Clubhouse of the Main Line. We're still legally Kids Clubhouse of the Main Line, so that's how I'll probably just address myself here. I'm a resident of Radnor Township. I reside at 820 Sproul Road in Bryn Mawr, along with my husband and 3 children. 6 years ago, actually, almost exactly, in December of 2018, I was standing in this exact spot requesting a relief from a variance to start my business, my then idea to start a drop-in childcare center. Your committee graciously granted the variance, and Since then, I've been in business, and although COVID decided a little differently what our, we're not a drop-in anymore. We really just are doing full-time preschool now. We've been thriving and open for, again, over 5 years. We provide a literacy-based curriculum to children ages 2 through 5 to ensure they're prepared for kindergarten. My staff is passionate and qualified, and we've been voted by parents as the best preschool of the main line for the last 4 years. As you may know, there's currently a shortage of childcare centers in the area, especially for 2-year-olds. I currently have 30 families waiting for a spot to open in my 2-year-old program alone. I know from talking to other childcare owners in the area that this is the case for them as well, especially for 2-year-olds. As a result, I've been interested in expanding my business, my preschool, for the last year or two, but I know how much time and effort I put into the current one, and the thought of opening at a separate location never really appealed to me because I knew I would have to, split my time between 2 locations, and I didn't want the quality to go down. When my landlord, Brandywine Realty, approached me 2 months ago, letting me know that the suite that shares a wall with mine was becoming available in the spring, I realized that this was probably the only time that I would be able to expand in the way that I was comfortable with. However, I knew that any expansion like this would require another zoning variance. So with the support of Brandywine, I've put together information for your committee to ask for a zoning and parking variance for the current planned business zone to a daycare zone for my proposed additional space. I'll start by first introducing my only witness for my testimony, Miss Eileen Bagden. Can you please confirm what company you're employed by?
Brandywine Realty Trust.
Oops. Is it on?
Is it on?
No? On there. There we go.
Brandywine Realty Trust. Say I'm loud anyway.
And here
Got a
is,
massive audience at home that needs to hear it through
Tell
the
me that.
microphone. Yeah.
this is Exhibit A3. Can you confirm that Exhibit A3 authorizes that I, the owner of Kids Clubhouse of the Main Line, am authorized by Brandywine Realty to apply for this zoning variance to the suite in question?
Yes.
Great. And then this is Exhibit A2. Can you please confirm that Exhibit A2 is the deed to the property located at 150 North Radnor Chester Road, referred to as the Radnor Financial Center, owned by Brandywine Realty?
Yes.
And let's see, and then the next one we have is Exhibit A6. This is kind of a faraway vision of it, but the next one shows a little closer up. Can you describe the layout of Radnor Financial Center here?
Sure. Radnor Financial Center consists of 3 buildings, 2 smaller ones, and then the larger one in the middle is about 340,000 square feet.
Great. And can you show where the parking is located for the Radnor Financial Center?
So it's along the back here, along the sides, and around the front.
Great, thank you. Can you let us know what your current occupancy rate is for the 3 buildings?
It's about 96% occupied.
Great. And can you confirm that having Kids Clubhouse of the Main Line as a tenant of the Radnor Financial Center has created an amenity for other tenants to be benefit from?
Yes, it has.
Great. And then lastly, can you confirm that by having Kids Clubhouse of the Main Line, now doing business as Bright Minds Preschool of the Main Line, expand into the adjoining suite, it would only serve as an even bigger amenity to the building as well as the surrounding community?
Yes.
Great, thank you. That's all I have for you right now, and I just have a few other things to show. Thank you. All right, I wanted to show some other photos from the exhibits. This first one is Exhibit A5. It's the proposed floor plan. Guess I'll use this. All right, it's a proposed floor plan for the current suite and the proposed floor plan for the new suite. This space features, this is my current space right here, the blue. This is the wall that currently is in between, and then this is the new space, the proposed space in the suite. As planned currently, there would be 12 additional families. I only have one classroom here that's dedicated to an actual classroom. And then this is a play area, indoor play area. We currently don't have that, so whenever there's rain or inclement weather, we're just stuck inside with currently 38 kids in this section. So we'd like to put in an indoor playroom. So with the one classroom, we would just be adding 12 additional families. The current and proposed space would be connected right here by a door. Only the families, my current space actually has its own entrance right here, and only the families and my staff use that. This space doesn't have its own, and it has an entrance here, but that's part of a main hallway that all the other tenants use as well. But only the families who have students in this one classroom would be using this exterior door here that then goes to our suite door. The majority of our families would still be entering our space through the doors that we have over here. And then I have Exhibit
Sorry,
A7.
can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes.
So is there internal access then to the new space from the existing?
There would be that door in between.
Will you point that out again?
Yes, sorry.
I missed it.
So there would be a door,
Oh, I see it.
yes, right here.
Is that the door that goes into, where it says younger children, younger kids?
It says, right now it says existing janitory. It's actually an office that we use right now. So we'd be not making that an office. It would be kind of a library that they just walk through. And then that's.
There's a door there? We're going to put a door there.
This is, there's been a slightly updated one since then. There's not a restroom here anymore. But that's, I apologize, I have a slightly outdated one, but there would be a door connecting these two spaces.
Okay, and then also below that, it looks like there's a door, correct?
Yes, I guess the door, yeah, for the old space, now it's right here, but really we're moving it, it's just slightly over.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but.
No, that's okay. All right, and then Exhibit A7 here. This is a photo of the back entrance to 150 North Radnor Chester Road. This is the entrance from the parking area just outside the entrance to the suite. So people come in here. The suite door is the first one on the left here. My current center is right here. And again, we have our own entrance that only we use. And then I have Exhibit A8. These are two photos, one coming right in from the parking area. This is the area you would come into. And then if you turn around, again, the first door right here is the door to the suite in question.
Which door? Can you point that out again, please?
Sorry. These doors is the suite door that we're looking at. And then Exhibit A9, this is a photo of the proposed dedicated parking spaces. Currently, we have 4 dedicated parking spaces right here, these 4 right in a row. Those are only used really right in the morning and right, towards the end of the day. They're only used by parents picking up and dropping off children, just so they don't have to park farther away. And then this does say on here, propose 4 additional dedicated parking spaces, but we're actually only asking for 2 now instead of the 4. So there's 8 total right up here. Hopefully these 2, and then the 4 we already have would be dedicated just for our parents. But again, this walkway right here is where the doors are to the new space.
And that's generally just pick up and drop off?
Yeah, exactly. So otherwise, it's pretty open.
I'm sorry, why are you only asking for 2 additional dedicated spaces as opposed to 4?
I was just about to get to that, but it actually is 3 additional. The math was a little off on mine, but I'll explain that. So before I get to that, the A10 shows photos of the available parking spaces on various days and times of the week. I did the same exercise 6 years ago. Just looking, I guess I can show you right here. Right here is about where the 2 suites are. Right here, suite entrance. So it's just looking at the suites. Well, I would be having approximately 5 additional staff, and again, the staff are the ones who are parking for the day. The other ones are just coming and leaving, usually not there longer than 3-4 minutes. But as you can see, there's plenty of additional parking, same as about 6 years ago, and also probably a little more now because of COVID. Even though it's 96% filled, a lot of people still are working from home. But going on for more of the parking information as requested. Regarding parking, the gross square footage of all the 3 buildings is 479,872 square feet. I am proposing to expand my child care center an additional 2,425 square feet. Although I'm currently only expecting to add 12 families to this space, as I already mentioned, the maximum number of children permitted by state regulations for the square footage is 30. So again, while I'm only planning on doing 12, I'm just using the number 30 for children, just in case we ever do expand and add more families. In that case, that would require 5 employees. As I mentioned, I did make a mistake in typing the math in my original application, but the numbers remain fairly the same. Per the Radnor zoning code, the number of required parking spaces for an office use in Radnor for the proposed 2,425 square feet is 7 spaces. In regards to a daycare center, though, the zoning code requires 1 space for each attendant, so that's 5, and then plus 1 space for every 500 square feet of floor area. So that would make it 10 spaces that would be required for the square footage for a daycare. Currently, the premise contains 1,482 parking spaces around the Radnor Financial Center. But as you can see from my Exhibit A10, many of them are unoccupied, even though, again, 96% of the spaces or of the building is occupied. So basically what I'm showing here is that there's plenty of parking spots available for my 10 required parking spots as a daycare, and in addition to the suite zoning variance that I'm asking for, from a planned business to a daycare, I'm asking for a variance to allow for the 3 extra parking spaces needed for a daycare center. That's all I have.
What presently occupies the space that you seek to expand into?
It's a company called Second Curve Capital, and they're going to be leaving after their lease is up May 31st.
Yeah, how many employees did they have?
Probably about 8 to 10.
Adults who drive?
Yes, adults who drive. Now, we also have the shuttle, so some people can take the train, too.
I was thinking about that,
Okay. Any other questions while it's open? No? Okay. So you can move your exhibits in if you want to.
Move them?
Yes,
We can
just-
accept your exhibits? Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Exhibits are accepted without exception. Sorry. Any public comment? Seeing none. Okay. Do I have a motion?
Actually, I'm going to make 2, Mr. Chairman. The first motion would be to grant the applicant the requested variance from the requirements of Section 280-59 of the code regarding the use of the space for a child care facility
Second.
in accordance with the usual in accordance with. Thank you.
Okay, we had a second. Any discussion on the use variance? No? Okay. I'll take a vote then. Zach?
I'm in favor. Aye.
John?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Okay. And then I think we have one more.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would also move that the applicant be granted the relief requested from Section 280-103B19 of the code regarding the required number of off-street parking spaces for the child care, or excuse me, the child daycare use. Again, in accordance with the plans and testimony presented this evening.
Any discussion? Okay.
I mean,
Zach?
I was just going to say,
Yep.
I mean, of course, there's a difference in the occupancy of a building versus the utilization. So as we can see here too, that's just widespread throughout the office market. So I think there's no parking issue whatsoever.
Okay. You want to vote?
I'm in favor.
John? John?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much.
And with that, again, I'll thank John for his dedication and service, and
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
I want to thank Kevin Kachansky for his service and help through my tenure here on the board, and also I want to thank Gus for his service as solicitor. He joined us in the middle of my tenure, and he's been a great resource for all of us, and I thank him for his service as well. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Okay, and with that, we stand in adjournment. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you in January.
Thank you, John. There's a few other vacancies. I'll be throwing your resume in and a cover letter. Just if you get some phone calls, that's what happened. Other boards.